well, all the money that comes as grants from governments, development banks, foundations, NGOs, individual donors, it's all limited, and very often it doesn't reach intended beneficiaries in very large volumes. I think there's a statistic that if you look at all aid overall, maybe 19% reaches intended beneficiaries. And there's all these hands reaching for it as it goes through the food chain from donor on down to recipient. And those hands are reaching in legal ways and illegal ways. And when you look at capital flows, the money from philanthropy or from taxpayer largesse coming from governments, it's just a drop in the bucket when you look at money in other capital flows, such as you find in the currency markets, the stock markets, all the ways that money flows through the systems. Philanthropy is just a small amount of money. And every program I've ever been involved with, you can't scale off of philanthropy. Like in my own instance, Seva through me raised, we were able to bring in over 200,000 intraocular lenses in 8 years, of which probably 80% were good to use. The rest, they would get expired or be the wrong prescription. And that was for only 2 programs over 8 years. But when we started Oral Lab, so that was 200,000 in 8 years. Oral Lab last year produced and sold 2.2 million to 120 countries. And more importantly, Oral Lab's presence made other competitors see that it was possible to make money in emerging market economies, selling intraocular lenses and other ophthalmic products. And so Oral Lab, their example spawned a whole very price competitive ophthalmic industry, especially for a large market like India. And so what you saw is pricing being the weapon to change the competitive landscape. When Oral Lab started in 1992, India was doing 800,000 cataract surgeries. Many other competitors saw what Oral Lab was doing, got into the fray and started producing not just intraocular lenses, but other ophthalmic products and equipment. And because India doesn't really have health insurance to speak of, or historically it hasn't, it's a very price competitive market. And so those competitors actually drove down Oral Lab's price from an initial $10 per lens, where we started selling the product at in 1992. In 8 years, our price was down to $2, and yet India's surgical volume for cataract had gone from 800,000 to 5 million. And today it's something like 8 million. It's the largest volume in the world, and it far exceeds what's going on in China. China, with more people, is doing about 1 million cataract surgeries per year, and they should probably be doing about 8 million. And I think that one of the reasons why the revolution hasn't happened in China is because there's been no Oral Lab creating a very low price point to make the whole industry more competitive and expansive and in favor of the consumer with regard to pricing for affordability. So that's what sustainability is all about. You know, if you look at all the major eye care programs that Seva and Arvin and other partners have helped create, price point, accessibility, and quality attract patients, and patients, the clients, become program planners because they march to the location that is accessible and affordable and gives them a good quality result. And by choosing who their provider is, they make all the other providers become a lot more competitive with regard to pricing and quality, because they have to compete with these major players and you know, springing up in their neighborhood, which are the Seva supported eye care programs. So That's why competition is good. And if you look at this whole U.S. healthcare system, there is no price competition. It's completely opaque. Congress sets the rates for Medicare reimbursement, and Medicaid and third-party insurers basically follow what the rates are, which Congress sets for Medicare, and yet Medicare rates are set through a lobbying process funded by pharmaceutical, medical device companies, insurance companies, and doctors' associations. So, and they've created a very opaque, non-transparent, non-competitive system. If you look at any medical device, and I've created medical devices in several fields. At most, there's maybe 5 major players, and anywhere from 2 to 5 players after a whole industry is consolidated. So for suture, there's just one major player, Ethicon, owned by J&J, and it's basically a monopoly. And then there's a bunch of smaller players. Ethicon probably has 90% of the global market share. If you look at intraocular lenses, it's 3 major players which dominate. If you look at hearing aids, I'm also involved with creating affordable hearing aids. It's 5 major companies that dominate. If you look at, diabetes, glucose monitoring and the strips and glucose monitors used in that, it's probably 3 to 5 major players. And so when industries consolidate, they don't really compete with each other on price. You could say that without even talking to each other, there's price fixing going on, because everyone is happy with their margins. Everyone has their own market share, and everyone's cozy with their margin, and they're not going to upset that by being overly competitive, because that would just, 3 to 5 players would then be driving down their own profitability by being competitive. So that's how the whole system is rigged.